"Wonder not," he said to those who were surprised, "for ere long the secret of my words will be made manifest to you. Among you there shall be a number who will live to behold the glory of a day which the prophets of old have yearned to witness." So great was his authority in the eyes of the ulamas who met and conversed with him, that they professed themselves incapable of comprehending the meaning of his mysterious allusions, and ascribed their failure to their own deficient understanding. Having sown the seeds of divine knowledge in the hearts of those whom he found receptive to his call, Sheikh Ahmad set out for Yazd, where he tarried a while, engaged continually in the dissemination of such truths as he felt urged to reveal. Most of his books and epistles were written in that city. Such was the fame he acquired, that the ruler of Persia, Fath Ali Shah, was moved to address to him from Tehran a written message, calling upon him to explain certain specific questions related to the abstruse teachings of the Muslim faith, the meaning of which the leading ulamas of his realm had been unable to unfold. To this he readily answered in the form of an epistle to which he gave the name of Risaliye-i Sultaniye. The Shah was so pleased with the tone and subject matter of that epistle that he forthwith sent him a second message, this time extending to him an invitation to visit his court. Replying to this second imperial message, he wrote the following: "As I had intended ever since my departure from Najaf and Karbala to visit and pay my homage to the shrine of the Imam Riza in Mashhad, I venture to hope that your Imperial Majesty will graciously allow me to fulfill the vow which I have made. Later on, God willing, it is my hope and purpose to avail myself of the honor which your Imperial Majesty has deigned to confer upon me." Among those who, in the city of Yazd, were awakened by the message of that bearer of the light of God was Haji Abdul Wahab, a man of great piety, upright and God-fearing. He visited Sheikh Ahmad each day in the company of a certain Mullah Abdul Khalik-i-Yazdi, who was noted for his authority and learning. On certain occasions, however, in order to talk confidentially with Abdul Wahab, Sheikh Ahmad, to the great surprise of the learned Abdul Khalik, would ask him to retire from his presence and leave him alone with his chosen and favorite disciple. This marked preference shown to so modest and illiterate a man as Abdul Wahab was a cause of great surprise to his companion, who was only too conscious of his own superiority and attainments. Later, however, when Sheikh Ahmad had departed from Yazd, Abdul Wahab retired from the society of men and came to be regarded as a Sufi. By the orthodox leaders of that country, however, such as the Nimatullahi and Jahabi, he was denounced as an intruder and was suspected of a desire to rob them of their leadership. Abdul Wahab, for whom the Sufi doctrine had no special attraction, scorned their false imputations and shunned their society. He associated with none except Haji Hassani Nayini, whom he had chosen as his intimate friend and to whom he confided the secret with which he had been entrusted by his master. When Abdul Wahab died, this friend, following his example, continued to pursue the path which he had directed him to tread, and announced to every receptive soul the tidings of God's fast approaching revelation. Mirza Mahmud-i-Khamsari, whom I met in Kashan, and who at that time was an old man over 90 years of age, and was greatly beloved and revered by all those who knew him, related to me the following story. I recall when in my youth, at the time when I was living in Kashan, I heard of a certain man in Nayin who had arisen to announce the tidings of a new revelation, and under whose spell fell all who heard him, whether scholars, officials of the government, or the uneducated among the people. His influence was such that those who came in contact with him renounced the world and despised its riches. Curious to ascertain the truth, I proceeded, unsuspected by my friends, to Nayin, where I was able to verify the statements that were current about him. His radiant countenance bespoke the light that had been kindled in his soul. I heard him one day, after he had offered his morning prayer, speak words such as these: "Ere long will the earth be turned into a paradise. Ere long will Persia be made the shrine round which will circle the peoples of the earth." One morning, at the hour of dawn, I found him fallen upon his face, repeating in rapt devotion the words, Allahu Akbar, which is God the Most Glorious. To my great surprise, he turned to me and said, "That which I have been announcing to you is now revealed. At this very hour, the light of the Promised One has broken and is shedding illumination upon the world. O Mahmud, verily I say, you shall live to behold that day of days." The words which that holy man addressed to me kept ringing in my ears until the day when, in the year 60, I was privileged to hear the call that arose from Shiraz. I was, alas, unable, because of my infirmities, to hasten to that city. Later, when the Bab, the herald of the new revelation, arrived in Kashan, and for 3 nights lived as a guest in the house of Haji Mirza Jani, I was unaware of his visit, and so missed the honor of attaining his presence. Some time afterwards, whilst conversing with the followers of the faith, I was informed that the birthday of the Bab fell on the first day of the month of Muharram of the year AH 1235, the 20th of October, AD 1819. I realized that the day to which Haji Hassan-i Nayini had referred did not correspond with this date, that there was actually a difference of 2 years between them. This thought sorely perplexed me. Long after, however, I met a certain Haji Mirza Kamaluddin Inaraki, who announced to me the revelation of Baha'u'llah in Baghdad, and who shared with me a number of verses from the Qasadi-i Vaka'i, as well as certain passages of the Persian and Arabic hidden words. I was moved to the depths of my soul as I heard him recite those sacred words. The following I still vividly remember. O son of being, thy heart is my home, sanctify it for my descent. Thy spirit is my place of revelation, cleanse it for my manifestation. O son of earth, wouldst thou have me seek none other than me, and wouldst thou gaze upon my beauty, close thine eyes to the world and all that is therein, for my will and the will of another than I, even as fire and water, cannot dwell together in one heart. I asked him the date of the birth of Baha'u'llah. The dawn of the 2nd day of Muharram, he replied, of the year AH 1233, the 12th of November, AD 1817. I immediately remembered the words of Haji Hassan, and recalled the day on which they were spoken. Instinctively I fell prostrate on the ground and exclaimed, "Glorified art thou, O my God, for having enabled me to attain unto this promised day. If now I be called to thee, I die content and assured." That very year, the year AH 1274, AD 1857 to 1858, that venerable and radiant soul yielded his spirit to God. This account, which I heard from the lips of Mirza Mahmud-i Kamsari himself, and which is still current amongst the people, is assuredly a compelling evidence of the perspicacity of the late Sheikh Ahmad-i Asai, and bears eloquent testimony to the influence he exercised upon his immediate disciples. The promise he gave them was eventually fulfilled, and the mystery with which he fired their souls was unfolded in all its glory. During those days when Sheikh Ahmad was preparing to depart from Yazd, Sayyid Kazim-i Rashti, that other luminary of divine guidance, set out from his native province of Gilan with the object of visiting Sheikh Ahmad ere the latter undertook his pilgrimage to Khurasan. In the course of his first interview with him, Sheikh Ahmad spoke these words, "I welcome you, O my friend. How long and how eagerly have I waited for you to come and deliver me from the arrogance of this perverse people. I am oppressed by the shamelessness of their acts and the depravity of their character. Verily we propose to the heavens and to the earth and to the mountains to receive the trust of God, but they refused the burden, and they feared to receive it. Man undertook to bear it, and he, verily, hath proved unjust, ignorant." This Sayyid Kazim had already from his early boyhood shown signs of remarkable intellectual power and spiritual insight. He was unique among those of his own rank and age. At the age of 11, he had committed to memory the whole of the Koran. At the age of 14, he had learned by heart a prodigious number of prayers and recognized traditions of Muhammad. At the age of 18, he had composed a commentary on a verse of the Koran, known as the Ayatul Kursi, which had excited the wonder and the admiration of the most learned of his day. His piety, the gentleness of his character, and his humility was such that all who knew him, whether young or old, were profoundly impressed. In the year AH 1231, AD 1815-16, when only 22 years old, he, forsaking home, kindred, and friends, departed from Gilan, intent upon attaining the presence of him who had so nobly arisen to announce the approaching dawn of a divine revelation. He had been in the company of Sheikh Ahmad for only a few weeks when the latter, turning to him one day, addressed him in these words: "Remain in your house and cease attending my lectures. Such of my disciples as may feel perplexed will turn henceforth to you, and will seek to obtain from you directly whatsoever assistance they may require. You will, through the knowledge which the Lord your God has bestowed upon you, resolve their problems and tranquilize their hearts. By the power of your utterance, you will help to revive the sorely neglected faith of Muhammad, your illustrious ancestor." These words, addressed to Sayyid Kazim, excited the resentment and kindled the envy of the prominent disciples of Sheikh Ahmad, among whom figured Mullah Muhammad-i Mamakani and Mullah Abdul Khalik-i Yazdi. So compelling was the dignity of Sayyid Kazim, however, and so remarkable were the evidences of his knowledge and wisdom, that these disciples were awed and felt compelled to submit. Sheikh Ahmad, having thus committed his disciples to the care of Sayyid Kazim, left for Khurasan. There he tarried a while in the close vicinity of the holy shrine of the Imam Riza in Mashhad. Within its precincts he pursued with undiminished zest the course of his labors. By resolving the intricacies that agitated the minds of the seekers, he continued to prepare the way for the advent of the coming manifestation. In that city he became increasingly conscious that the day which was to witness the birth of the Promised One could not be far distant. That promised hour, he felt, was fast approaching. From the direction of Nur, in the province of Mazindaran, he was able to perceive the first glimmerings that heralded the dawn of the promised dispensation. To him, the revelation foreshadowed in these following traditional utterances was at hand. "Ere long shall ye behold the countenance of your Lord, resplendent as the moon in its full glory, and yet ye shall fail to unite in acknowledging his truth and embracing his faith. And one of the most mighty signs that shall signalize the advent of the promised hour is this: a woman shall give birth to one who shall be her Lord." Sheikh Ahmad therefore set his face towards Nur, and accompanied by Sayyid Kazim and a number of his distinguished disciples, proceeded to Tehran. The Shah of Persia, being informed of the approach of Sheikh Ahmad to his capital, commanded the dignitaries and officials of Tehran to go out to meet him. He directed them to extend a cordial expression of welcome on his behalf. The distinguished visitor and his companions were royally entertained by the Shah, who visited him in person and declared him to be the glory of his nation and an ornament to his people. In those days there was born a child in an ancient and noble family of Nur, whose father was Mirza Abbas, better known as Mirza Buzurg, a favored minister of the crown. There is a footnote. Mirza Abul Fazl asserts in his writings that the genealogy of Baha'u'llah can be traced back to the ancient prophets of Persia as well as to its kings who ruled over the land prior to the Arab invasion. That child was Baha'u'llah. His name was Mirza Hussein Ali. At the hour of dawn, on the second day of Muharram, in the year AH 1233, the 12th of November, AD 1817, the world, unaware of its significance, witnessed the birth of him who was destined to confer upon it such incalculable blessings. Sheikh Ahmad, who recognized in its full measure the meaning of this auspicious event, yearned to spend the remaining days of his life within the precincts of the court of this divine, this new-born king. But this was not to be. His thirst unallayed, and his yearning unsatisfied, he felt compelled to submit to God's irrevocable decree, and, turning his face away from the city of his beloved, proceeded to Kermanshah. The governor of Kermanshah, Prince Muhammad Ali Mirza, the Shah's eldest son, and the ablest member of his house, had already begged permission of His Imperial Majesty to enable him to entertain and serve in person Sheikh Ahmad. So favored was the prince in the eyes of the Shah that his request was immediately granted. Wholly resigned to his destiny, Sheikh Ahmad bade farewell to Tehran. Ere his departure from that city, he breathed a prayer that this hidden treasure of God, now born amongst his countrymen, might be preserved and cherished by them, that they might recognize the full measure of his blessedness and glory, and might be enabled to proclaim his excellence to all nations and peoples. Upon his arrival in Kermanshah, Sheikh Ahmad decided to select a number of the most receptive from among his Shia disciples, and by devoting his special attention to their enlightenment, to enable them to become the active supporters of the cause of the promised revelation. In the series of books and epistles which he undertook to write, among which figures his well-known work Sharh Siyari, he extolled in clear and vivid language the virtues of the Imams of the faith, and laid special stress upon the allusions which they had made to the coming of the Promised One. By his repeated references to Hussein, he meant, however, none other than the Hussein who was yet to be revealed, and by his allusions to the ever-recurrent name Ali, he intended not the Ali who had been slain, but the Ali recently born. To those who questioned him regarding the signs that must needs herald the advent of the Qaim, he emphatically asserted the inevitableness of the promised dispensation. In the very year the Bab was born, Sheikh Ahmad suffered the loss of his son, whose name was Sheikh Ali. To his disciples who mourned his loss, he spoke these words of comfort: "Grieve not, O my friends, for I have offered up my son, my own Ali, as a sacrifice for the Ali whose advent we all await. To this end have I reared and prepared him." The Bab, who was born Ali Muhammad, was born in Shiraz on the 1st of Muharram in the year AH 1235, the 20th of October, AD 1819. He was the descendant of a house renowned for its nobility, which traced its origin to Muhammad himself. His father, Syed Muhammad Riza, as well as his mother, were descendants of the Prophet and belonged to families of recognized standing. The date of his birth confirmed the truth of the saying attributed to the Imam Ali, the commander of the faithful, "I am 2 years younger than my Lord." The mystery of this utterance, however, remained unrevealed except to those who sought and recognized the truth of the new revelation. It was he, the Bab, who, in his first, his most weighty and most exalted book, revealed this passage concerning Baha'u'llah: "O thou remnant of God, I have sacrificed myself wholly for thee. I have consented to be cursed for thy sake, and have yearned for naught but martyrdom in the path of thy love. Sufficient witness unto me is God, the exalted, the protector, the ancient of days." While Sheikh Ahmad was sojourning in Kermanshah, he received so many evidences of ardent devotion from Prince Muhammad Ali Mirza that on one occasion he was moved to refer to the prince in such terms: "Muhammad Ali I regard as my own son, though he be ascendant of Fath Ali." A considerable number of seekers and disciples thronged to his house and eagerly attended his lectures. To none, however, did he feel inclined to show the consideration and affectionate regard which characterized his attitude towards Syed Kazim. He seemed to have singled him out from among the multitude that crowded to see him, and to be preparing him to carry on with undiminished vigor his work after his death. One of his disciples one day questioned Sheikh Ahmad concerning the word which the Promised One is expected to utter in the fullness of time, a word so appallingly tremendous that the 313 chiefs and nobles of the earth would each and all flee in consternation as if overwhelmed by its stupendous weight. To him Sheikh Ahmad replied, "How can you presume to sustain the weight of the word which the chieftains of the earth are incapable of bearing? Seek not to gratify an impossible desire. Cease asking me this question and beseech forgiveness from God." That presumptuous questioner again pressed him to disclose the nature of that word. At last Sheikh Ahmad replied, "Were you to attain that day, were you to be told to repudiate the guardianship of Ali and to denounce its validity, what would you say?" "God forbid," he exclaimed, "such things can never be. That such words should proceed out of the mouth of the promised one is to me inconceivable." How grievous the mistake he made, and how pitiful his plight! His faith was weighed in the balance, and was found wanting, inasmuch as he failed to recognize that he who must needs be manifest is endowed with that sovereign power which no man dare question. His is the right to command whatever he willeth, and to decree that which he pleaseth. Whoever hesitates, whoever, though it be for the twinkling of an eye or less, questions his authority, is deprived of his grace, and is accounted of the fallen. And yet few, if any, among those who listened to Sheikh Ahmad in that city, and heard him unfold the mysteries of the allusions in the sacred scriptures, were able to appreciate the significance of his utterances, or to apprehend their purpose. Sayyid Kazim, his able and distinguished lieutenant, alone could claim to have understood his meaning. After the death of Prince Muhammad Ali Mirza, Sheikh Ahmad, freed from the urgent solicitations of the prince to extend his sojourn in Kirmanshah, transferred his residence to Karbila. Though to outward seeming he was circling round the shrine of the Sayyidu Shuhada, the Prince of Martyrs, the Imam Hussein, his heart, whilst he performed those rites, was set upon that true Hussein, the only object of his devotions. A host of the most distinguished ulamas and mujtahids thronged to see him. Many began to envy his reputation, and a number sought to undermine his authority. However much they strove, they failed to shake his position of undoubted preeminence amongst the learned men of that city. Eventually, that shining light was summoned to shed its radiance upon the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. Thither he journeyed. There he pursued with unstinted devotion his labors, and there he was laid to rest beneath the shadow of the Prophet's sepulchre, for the understanding of whose cause he had so faithfully labored. Ere he departed from Karbila, he confided to Sayyid Kazim, his chosen successor, the secret of his mission, and instructed him to strive to kindle in every receptive heart the fire that had burned so brightly within him. However much Sayyid Kazim insisted on accompanying him as far as Najaf, Sheikh Ahmad refused to comply with his request. "You have no time to lose," were the last words which he addressed to him. "Every fleeting hour should be fully and wisely utilized. You should gird up the loin of endeavor and strive day and night to rend asunder, by the grace of God and by the hand of wisdom and loving kindness, those veils of heedlessness that have blinded the eyes of men. For verily I say, the hour is drawing nigh, the hour I have besought God to spare me from witnessing, for the earthquake of the last hour will be tremendous. You should pray to God to be spared the overpowering trials of that day, for neither of us is capable of withstanding its sweeping force. Others, of greater endurance and power, have been destined to bear this stupendous weight. Men whose hearts are sanctified from all earthly things, and whose strength is reinforced by the potency of his power." Having spoken these words, Sheikh Ahmad bade him farewell, urged him to face valiantly the trials that must needs afflict him, and committed him to the care of God. In Karbila, Sayyid Kazim devoted himself to the work initiated by his master, expounded his teachings, defended his cause, and answered whatever questions perplexed the minds of his disciples. The vigor with which he prosecuted his task inflamed the animosity of the ignorant and envious. "For 40 years," they clamored. "We have suffered the pretentious teachings of Sheikh Ahmad to be spread with no opposition whatever on our part. We no longer can tolerate similar pretensions on the part of his successor, who rejects the belief in the resurrection of the body, who repudiates the literal interpretation of the mirage, the ascent of Muhammad to heaven, who regards the signs of the coming day as allegorical, and who preaches a doctrine heretical in character and subversive of the best tenets of Orthodox Islam." The louder their clamour and protestations, the firmer grew the determination of Sayyid Kazim to prosecute his mission and fulfill his trust. He addressed an epistle to Sheikh Ahmad, wherein he set forth at length the calumnies that had been uttered against him, and acquainted him with the character and extent of their opposition. In it he ventured to inquire as to how long he was destined to submit to the unrelenting fanaticism of a stubborn and ignorant people, and prayed to be enlightened regarding the time when the promised one was to be made manifest. To this Sheikh Ahmad replied, "Be assured of the grace of your God. Be not grieved at their doings. The mystery of this cause must needs be made manifest, and the secret of this message must needs be divulged. I can say no more. I can appoint no time. His cause will be made known after Hin. Ask me not of the things which, if revealed unto you, might only pain you." There is a footnote. According to the Abjad notation, the numerical value of the word Hin is 68. It was in the year AH 1268, that is AD 1851 to 1852, that Baha'u'llah, while confined in the Sia Shal of Tehran, received the first intimations of his divine mission. Of this he hinted in the odes which he revealed in that year. How great, how very great is his cause, that even to so exalted a personage as Sayyid Kazim words such as these should have been addressed. This answer of Sheikh Ahmad imparted solace and strength to the heart of Sayyid Kazim, who, with redoubled determination, continued to withstand the onslaught of an envious and insidious enemy. Sheikh Ahmad died soon after, in the year AH 1242, in Hadi, in the neighborhood of Medina, at the age of 81, and was laid to rest in the cemetery of Baha'i, in the close vicinity of the resting place of Muhammad in the holy city of Medina. Chapter 2. The Mission of Sayyid Kazim-i Rashdi. The news of the passing of his beloved master brought unspeakable sorrow to the heart of Sayyid Kazim. Inspired by the verse of the Koran, "Fain would they put out God's light with their mouths, but God only desireth to perfect his light, albeit the infidels abhor it," he arose with unswerving purpose to consummate the task with which Sheikh Ahmad had entrusted him. He found himself, after the removal of so distinguished a protector, a victim of the slanderous tongue and unrelating enmity of the people around him. They attacked his person, scorned his teachings, and reviled his name. At the instigation of a powerful and notorious Shia leader, Sayyid Ibrahim-i Qazvini, the enemies of Sayyid Kazim leagued together and determined to destroy him. Thereupon, Sayyid Kazim conceived the plan of securing the support and goodwill of one of the most formidable and outstanding ecclesiastical dignitaries of Persia, the renowned Haji Sayyid Muhammad Baqir-i Rashdi, who lived in Isfahan, and whose authority extended far beyond the confines of that city. This friendship and sympathy, Sayyid Kazim thought, would enable him to pursue untrammeled the course of his activities, and would considerably enhance the influence which he exercised over his disciples. "Would that one amongst you," he was often heard to say to his followers, "could arise and with complete detachment journey to Isfahan and deliver this message from me to that learned Sayyid. Why is it that in the beginning you showed such marked consideration and affection for the late Sheikh Ahmad, and now have suddenly detached yourself from the body of his chosen disciples? Why is it that you have abandoned us to the mercy of our opponents? Would that such a messenger, putting his trust in God, might arise to unravel whatever mysteries perplex the mind of that learned Sayyid, and dispel such doubts as might have alienated his sympathy. Would that he were able to obtain from him a solemn declaration testifying to the unquestioned authority of Sheikh Ahmad, and to the truth and soundness of his teachings. Would that he also, after having secured such a testimony, might visit Mashhad, and there obtain a similar pronouncement from Mirza Askari, the foremost ecclesiastical leader in that holy city, and then, having completed his mission, might return in triumph to this place. Again and again did Sayyid Kazim find opportunity to reiterate his appeal. None, however, ventured to respond to his call, except a certain Mirza Muhit-i Kirmani, who expressed readiness to undertake this mission. To him, Sayyid Kazim replied, "Beware of touching the lion's tail. Belittle not the delicacy and difficulty of such a mission." He then, turning his face towards his youthful disciple, Mullah Hussein-i Bushrui, the Babul Bab, addressed him in these words: "Arise and perform this mission, for I declare you equal to this task. The Almighty will graciously assist you, and will crown your endeavors with success." There is a footnote. Mullah Hussein-i Bushrui, the Babul Bab, was the first to believe in the Bab, who gave him this title. Mullah Hussein joyously sprang to his feet, kissed the hem of his teacher's garment, vowed his loyalty to him, and started forthwith on his journey. With complete severance and noble reserve, he set out to achieve his end. Arriving in Isfahan, he sought immediately the presence of the learned Sayyid. Clad in mean attire and laden with the dust of travel, he appeared amidst the vast and richly apparelled company of the disciples of that distinguished leader, an insignificant and negligible figure. Unobserved and undaunted, he advanced to a place which faced the seat occupied by that renowned teacher. Summoning to his aid all the courage and confidence with which the instructions of Sayyid Kazim had inspired him, he addressed Haji Sayyid Muhammad Bakir in these words: "Hearken, O Sayyid, to my words, for response to my plea will ensure the safety of the faith of the Prophet of God, and refusal to consider my message will cause it grievous injury." These bold and courageous words, uttered with directness and force, produced a surprising impression upon the Sayyid. He suddenly interrupted his discourse, and, ignoring his audience, listened with close attention to the message which this strange visitor had brought. His disciples, amazed at this extraordinary behavior, rebuked this sudden intruder and denounced his presumptuous pretensions. With extreme politeness, in firm and dignified language, Mullah Hussein hinted at their discourtesy and shallowness, and expressed surprise at their arrogance and vainglory. The Sayyid was highly pleased with the demeanor and argument which the visitor so strikingly displayed. He deplored and apologized for the unseemly conduct of his own disciples. In order to compensate for their ingratitude, he extended every conceivable kindness to that youth, assured him of his support, and besought him to deliver his message. Thereupon, Mullah Hussein acquainted him with the nature and object of the mission with which he had been entrusted. To this the learned Sayyid replied, "As we in the beginning believed that both Sheikh Ahmad and Sayyid Kazim were actuated by no desire except to advance the cause of knowledge and safeguard the sacred interests of the faith, we felt prompted to extend to them our heartiest support and to extol their teachings. In later years, however, we have noticed so many conflicting statements and obscure and mysterious allusions in their writings that we felt it advisable to keep silent for a time, and to refrain from either censure or applause." To this Mullah Hussein replied, "I cannot but deplore such silence on your part, for I firmly believe that it involves the loss of a splendid opportunity to advance the cause of truth. It is for you to set forth specifically such passages in their writings as appear to you mysterious or inconsistent with the precepts of the faith, and I will, with the aid of God, undertake to expound their true meaning." The poise, the dignity and confidence which characterized the behavior of this unexpected messenger greatly impressed Haji Sayyid Muhammad Bakir. He begged him not to press the matter at this moment, but to wait until a later day, when in private converse he might acquaint him with his own doubts and misgivings. Mullah Hussein, however, feeling that delay might prove harmful to the cause he had at heart, insisted upon an immediate conference with him about the weighty problems which he felt impelled and able to resolve. The Seyyid was moved to tears by the youthful enthusiasm, the sincerity and serene confidence to which the countenance of Mullah Hussein so admirably testified. He sent immediately for some of the works written by Sheikh Ahmad and Seyyid Kazim and began to question Mullah Hussein regarding those passages which had excited his disapproval and surprise. To each reference the messenger replied with characteristic vigor, with masterly knowledge and befitting modesty. He continued in this manner, in the presence of the assembled disciples, to expound the teachings of Sheikh Ahmad and Seyyid Kazim, to vindicate their truth and to defend their cause, until the time when the muazzin, calling the faithful to prayer, suddenly interrupted the flow of his argument. The next day he similarly, in the presence of a large and representative assembly, and whilst facing the Seyyid, resumed his eloquent defence of the high mission entrusted by an almighty providence to Sheikh Ahmad and his successor. A deep silence fell upon his hearers. They were seized with wonder at the cogency of his argument and the tone and manner of his speech. The Seyyid publicly promised that on the following day he would himself issue a written declaration wherein he would testify to the eminence of the position held by both Sheikh Ahmad and Seyyid Kazim, and would pronounce whosoever deviated from their path as one who had turned aside from the faith of the Prophet himself. He would likewise bear witness to their penetrative insight and their correct and profound understanding of the mysteries which the faith of Muhammad enshrined. The Seyyid redeemed his pledge, and with his own hand penned the promised declaration. He wrote at length, and in the course of his testimony paid a tribute to the character and learning of Mullah Hussein. He spoke in glowing terms of Seyyid Kazim, apologized for his former attitude, and expressed the hope that in the days to come he might be enabled to make amends for his past and regrettable conduct towards him. He read himself to the disciples the text of this written testimony, and delivered it unsealed to Mullah Hussein, authorizing him to share its contents with whomsoever he pleased, that all might know the extent of his devotion to Seyyid Kazim. No sooner had Mullah Hussein retired than the Seyyid charged one of his trusted attendants to follow in the footsteps of the visitor, and find out the place where he was residing. The attendant followed him to a modest building which served as a madrisi, and saw him enter a room which, except for a worn-out mat which covered its floor, was devoid of furniture. He watched him arrive, offer his prayer and thanksgiving to God, and lie down upon that mat with nothing to cover him except his abba. Having reported to his master all that he had observed, the attendant was again instructed to deliver to Mullah Hussein the sum of 100 tumans, and to express his sincere apologies of his master for his inability to extend to so remarkable a messenger a hospitality that befitted his station. To this offer Mullah Hussein sent the following reply: "Tell your master that his real gift to me is the spirit of fairness with which he received me, and the open-mindedness which prompted him, despite his exalted rank, to respond to the message which I, a lowly stranger, brought him. Return this money to your master, for I, as a messenger, ask for neither recompense nor reward. We nourish your souls for the sake of God. We seek from you neither recompense nor thanks." The Quran 76:9. My prayer for your master is that earthly leadership may never hinder him from acknowledging and testifying to the truth. There is a footnote here. The Bab, in the Dala'il-i-Sabi, refers to Mullah Hussein in these terms: "You especially know who is the first witness of that faith. You know that the majority of the doctors of the Sheikhi and the Sayyidiyya and other sects admired his science and his talent. When he came to Isfahan, the urchins of the town cried out as he passed, 'Ah, a ragged student has just arrived!' But behold, this man by his proofs and arguments convinced a Seyyid, one known for his proven scientific knowledge, Muhammad Bakir. Truly, that is one of the proofs of this manifestation, for after the death of the Seyyid, this personage went out to see most of the doctors of Islam and found truth only with the master of truth. It was then that he attained the destiny which had been determined for him. In truth, the people of the beginning and of the end of this manifestation envy him, and will envy him until the day of judgment. And who then can accuse this mastermind of mental weakness and infidelity? From the Book of Seven Proofs, translated by A.L.M. Nichols, page 54. Haji Syed Muhammad Baqir died before the year A.H. 1260, A.D. 1844, the year that witnessed the birth of the faith proclaimed by the Bab. He remained to his last moment a staunch supporter and fervent admirer of Syed Kazim. Having fulfilled the first part of his mission, Mullah Hussain dispatched this written testimony of Haji Syed Muhammad Baqir to his master in Karbala, and directed his steps towards Mashhad, determined to deliver to the best of his ability the message which he was charged to give to Mirza Askari. Immediately the letter, enclosing the Syed's written declaration, was delivered to Syed Kazim, the latter was so rejoiced that he forthwith sent to Mullah Hussain his reply, expressing his grateful appreciation of the exemplary manner in which he had discharged his trust. He was so delighted with the answer he received that, interrupting the course of his lecture, he read out to his disciples both the letter of Mullah Hussain and the written testimony enclosed in the letter. He afterwards shared with them the epistle which he himself had written to Mullah Hussain in recognition of the remarkable service he had rendered him. In it Syed Kazim paid such a glowing tribute to his high attainments, to his ability and character, that a few among those who heard it suspected that Mullah Hussain was that promised one to whom their master unceasingly referred, the one whom he so often declared to be living in their very midst, and yet to have remained unrecognized by them all. That communication enjoined upon Mullah Hussain the fear of God, urged him to regard it as the most potent instrument with which to withstand the onslaught of the enemy, and the distinguishing feature of every true follower of the faith. It was couched in such terms of tender affection that no one who read it could doubt that the writer was bidding farewell to his beloved disciple, and that he entertained no hope of ever meeting him again in this world. In those days, Syed Kazim became increasingly aware of the approach of the hour at which the promised one was to be revealed. He realized how dense were those veils that hindered the seekers from apprehending the glory of the concealed manifestation. He accordingly exerted his utmost endeavor to remove, gradually, with caution and wisdom, whatever barriers might stand in the way of the full recognition of that hidden treasure of God. He repeatedly urged his disciples to bear in mind the fact that he whose advent they were expecting would appear neither from Jabulka nor from Jabulsa. A footnote says, mysterious cities, from one of which Imam Mihdi will appear. He even hinted at his presence in their very midst. You behold him with your own eyes, he often observed, and yet recognize him not. To his disciples who questioned him regarding the signs of the manifestation, he would say, he is of noble lineage. He is a descendant of the prophet of God, of the family of Hashim. He is young in age, and is possessed of innate knowledge. His learning is derived not from the teachings of Sheikh Ahmad, but from God. My knowledge is but a drop compared with the immensity of his knowledge. My attainments a speck of dust in the face of the wonders of his grace and power. Nay, immeasurable is the difference. He is of medium height, abstains from smoking, and is of extreme devoutness and piety.